Hi everyone, welcome back to Ukulele Next Steps with me, Matt Stead. In the last video of this series, we're going to take everything that we've learned this series and we're going to use those skills to take an arrangement of Honeysuckle Rose. We've already done it as an accompaniment. But we're going to use everything we've learned to turn it into a lovely chord melody arrangement. Let's take a look. So we're going to break it down measure by measure, really digging into what's happening with both this hand and this hand. And in terms of the arrangement, I provided a free downloadable PDF of the whole arrangement, which you can find in the description below. Again, I might feature portions of it on screen so you can follow it along, but you might find it really useful to download and print it off. So I'm not going to talk an awful lot about chord structure and music theory in regards to this piece because I covered that in the earlier version where we did an accompaniment version. Link in a description to that video. But if we jump right in and have a look at what's happening in the first line, notice that we basically have a playoff between two chords, the G minor 7 chord and the C7 chord, although we're playing it open like a C6. That happens again and again and again on the first few measures, whilst we have this simple melody just repeating again and again. So let's deal with this fretting hand first and see what's happening in these first few measures. Now, if you look at the tablature, it looks like the first measure is asking you to play 2, 1, 3 as so. But what I want you to do is actually take this index finger and do a mini bar over the E and A strings of the first fret. And then reach over with your second finger, make sure there's a nice arch in there so you can see daylight underneath. And that's going to press down on this D note here, second fret of the C string. And finally, depending on which you find most comfortable, either your third finger or fourth finger is going to hit this C note here. Okay, so we've got mini bar, reaching over, and we're covering this note here. That's the first chord. Now, the reason I'm getting you to do this mini bar here is that it means when we take this finger away, the rest of the measure, those notes there, notice we have a B flat, a D note, and then an F. Our fingers are already covering the right strings. So as long as you start with that mini bar of the index finger, I'll tell you what to do with this hand in a minute, but let's just strum down using the thumb for now. We take it away and play the other notes. And then finally take everything off and strum down for the C chord. Now you might think, hang on a minute, that last chord you played, you called it a C7, but isn't it a C6? Well, all the chords in this piece, and this is the same for most chord melody arrangers, I've named them after the underlying chords, the original chords from the piece. And the original chords of that second chord is a form of dominant C chord, C7 being the most famous form of a dominant C chord. The reason we have that open A note is just because that's the melody note at that point in the song. Have a listen. This note here. So we need to hear that, and if I strum a C7, I'm hearing a B flat, but I want to hear that A note. So we still call it a C7, and if any other musicians were playing along with you, that it might help them to know it's a dominant chord underneath that, but actually we play it completely open. If that music theory goes, doesn't matter a bit, just know that we're playing a form of minor 7 chord, some melody notes, followed by all open strings. Let's take a look at what's happening with this hand before we work out the next few measures. Now, the arrangement doesn't specify how to play this in terms of your picking hand. So when there are chords, it doesn't say that we're doing a brush, so you might presume we're doing a pull. So we can kind of make our own decisions on that, and we'll kind of specify that in a minute. But just know, when we're picking out melody notes, what I want you to do is play Pima style. That just means that any melody note that falls on the G string, you're going to pick with your thumb. Any note that falls on the C string, your index, E string middle, and A string ring. So we use a corresponding finger or thumb to pick the note. And notice that we've still got our 45-degree angle with our uke, and when I'm picking, this hand is at a 45-degree angle as well. It's not like this, it's not like this, it's just at a comfortable 45-degree angle. The thumb, I'm just using the pad on my thumb here to pick that one, and the nails of these to pick up. Now this is just my own personal choice, but what I like to do is highlight the first chord of each measure in this piece. So that G minor 7 chord with the mini bar and this note added, I'm actually going to play that by strumming down gently with the nail side of my index finger. Just like that, right? Then I'm going to pick out the next few notes Pima style with these fingers, and notice that if I take away this finger, I'm covering all the right frets and strings to play the next few melody notes. And then finally, this last chord, this open chord, I'm going to take everything off, and to differentiate it from the G minor 7, I'm actually going to pick this by pulling up on all 4 strings, pinching down with my thumb, up with the other 3 fingers. So the first measure will sound like this. The second measure is exactly the same, so let me use that opportunity to come in really close and show you what's happening once more. So we have this shape for a G minor 7 chord. We brush down with the nail. This finger lifts off, and the fingers are in the right place for the next few notes, which I just pick through with these fingers. And finally, everything off and pull up on everything at the same time. So, brush. Note, 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 pull. Fantastic, give it a try. The third measure looks like it's doing the same thing. In fact, the first half of the measure is exactly the same, okay? So we have that strum down. We pick the next 3 melody notes. But this time we stay on a G minor 7 with an A melody note. So all you have to do is lift up these 2 fingers so there's nothing on the A string. And then when you pinch this time, we have the sound of a G minor 7 with that A added. And then right at the end, there's just 1 extra A note. So in slow motion, that will sound like this. Lift up and hit the A. That's great. The fourth measure is based on a C dominant chord. This time, rather than a form of C7, I'm using a C13. Now, that's actually fairly easy peasy to play, thank goodness. So we're just going to use 2 fingers on the 2nd and 3rd frets on the C and G strings. Because that chord is the first beat of the measure, just like the other times we've done that, we're going to strum down gently with the nail of our index finger. And then we're going to pick out the rest of the notes Pima style. Now, what I do to get that G, that 3, is I add my little finger to the 3rd fret of the E string and pick it. The F note, the 1, I pop this finger off and this one down. And the 2, the D note, your finger is already in the right place. So in slow motion, this measure will sound like this. Okay, give that a go. Strum, pick, pick, pick. Fantastic. Let's put that together. 2, 3, 4. Same again. Same again, but with the lift this time. Lift up. C13. And then this time with those melody notes. Now, eventually when you make your own arrangements, you'll see that you have to make kind of judgment calls on what to include and what not to include. And a lot of songs, each time a verse is sung, the lyrics are slightly different. That means the syllables and the melody that's sung is slightly different. And this bit of the song here, I've based that little melody on the kind of version that people know the best. So it's kind of that everybody knows. But in some verses, it's you're my sweetness, goodness knows, which is a different melody slightly again. Well, what I've done is I've kept the melody the same each time, but to add some interest, after we've done that, everybody, I've created some kind of harmonic interest here in the next phrase. I'm playing through some common chords, and underneath you hear almost like this little kind of, this little hidden melody. So let's take a look at how to play that and have that melody coming through. That takes us into measure 6. We've just played that B flat major 7 at the start of measure 6. All we're going to do next is that B minor 7 flat 5. Again, it looks like another chord shape. So just think of it as like a D minor chord. Now, because this is the start of a phrase, even though it's not at the start of the measure, I like to strum this chord. And then I just add my little finger here for the G, the 3, fingers in the right place for the F, the 1, and it's in the right place for the D. So notice after I strum that D minor shape, I leave it on for the next few notes. Great. That takes us on to the first turnaround. Again, don't worry too much about the theory behind this. We've just got a kind of jazz turnaround. You're going to keep that shape down, that D minor shape for an F6. Just pick the top 3 strings. Then we have that B flat 9. Just finger the top 3 strings as an almost like a G major shape. Okay, can you see that? But it's on the top 3 strings, first 2 frets. We can swap around to an F shape. I just moved this one up. And then finally, the A flat minor 7. This is awkward. This finger here, this one over. Isn't that a lovely chord? It's like it's asking a question. So those 4 chords under the number 1 repeat. D minor shape, G shape, F shape, and then the unusual one to finish it off. Okay, so again, just watch my fingers and see if you can copy it through. Not too bad, just practice that round a few times and you'll soon get used to it. Now, believe it or not, it looks like we haven't done that much, but we've done a large portion of the song because those first 2 lines repeat themselves for the second repeat. So you've already played through that. And when we come to the final A part, the last couple of lines, it's pretty much the same thing again. So well done. You are actually getting a fair way through this. So what I'd like to do is just play through the first two lines really slowly up to and including that first repeat. First time through, let's not worry about timing. I'll talk you through it and then we'll do a slow version in time. So 2, 3, 4, strum the first chord. Pick, pick, pick off. Then we're going to do exactly the same thing. Strum, finger off, pick, 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 pull. We start the same this time. Finger off. But this time just lift these two up and pinch. Hit the A string. Then pivot on this one to C13, strum. We're going to pinch the second one. And then just G, F, D, or 3, 1, 2. And then we've got these lovely chords with that hidden melody, D minor shape, F shape, F7. Pivot round to this B flat chord. Lovely. We're going to strum this D minor shape chord. 3, 1, 2. And then we're going to pull up on these next three. D minor shape, G shape, F shape, and then our unusual one to finish. Great. Let's put that all together in time then. Here we go. Very slow tempo. 2, 3, 4. Now, some people might get that straight away. For others, that will be a real struggle. But just remember, if you slow everything down to your own pace, you can rewind that and watch it back as many times as you want. Just take things slow and you will get it. My trouble, when I try and do things too quickly, when I go wrong, is when the tempo is faster than my brain can cope with. So I second guess what's coming next. I panic and I hit the wrong thing. So what you can do is you can break it down and go as slowly as you want. So that first bit, for instance, you could make sure your fingers are in the right place for the first one. Now don't hit a single note until you're sure of what note comes next, which is lifting this one and then playing through. And then think, I've got to take everything off. And you can go that slowly, just piece it together bit by bit. And then as you gradually get used to it, then you can up the tempo and you'll soon get it. Now, the second time you play the verse, you're going to do everything exactly the same until you get to the repeat section. You're going to completely ignore the chords that are under the number 1 repeat, and you're going to play the ones underneath the number 2 repeat. They're kind of similar, but this time we've got this mini melody on the G string. We get this kind of this melody here, okay? It's fairly simple to do. First off, you're just going to hold down that D minor shape. Remember, it's an F6, and we're going to pinch the top 3 strings. Then we're going to move this one down here, so it's like a G minor 7, but you're just playing the top 3 strings. You're going to play that G shape on the top 3 again. And then this time we go back to this F6, the D minor shape. And that's really important. The first repeat is asking a question at the end, you know, of that really unusual chord. Whereas this time, the question is being answered. So it's like, we finished with that section and we're on to a new one. And that's exactly what happens. We get onto the B section next. So let's just play through that second verse with the second repeat. So we're going to start just the same on that G minor 7, 2, 3, 4. Off, same thing again. Same thing but with a different ending. Lift up, C13, pinch it. F6, F shape, F7, and then round to the B flat major. So, yeah, good. Now this time we do the second repeat. Well done. So this song is following that classic jazz pattern, A-A-B-A. All that means is we have the A section twice, that's the verse if you like, twice. Then we go on to a new section, which we're about to do, the B section. And then finally, in the last couple of lines, we repeat the A section again. So let's have a look at the B section where the tune, the melody and the chords change. And we're going to start this is the last measure of the second line. Don't worry too much about the theory behind this next section. It's based on something called a 1-4-2-5 progression, but I've kind of extended that out into 2 mini 2-5-1 progressions. Again, don't worry, just if you're interested. It's almost like we have a 2-5-1 in the key of B flat, because we have C minor 7, F7, B flat. And then we have like a 2-5-1 in the key of C, D minor 7, G7, C7. But let's just have a look at how to play this. This one has a slightly different rhythm, this kind of almost staccato. Did you get that feel? It's like note, sharp chord, note, sharp chord. And that's to really highlight this melody. And that's the vocal melody of don't buy sugar. So I've changed the rhythm to really accentuate that and make it stand out. So let's have a look at how to play that to make that melody stand out. This next bit is one of those kind of chord progressions that looks kind of really tricky and overwhelming. But if I break it down, you'll see it's not half as bad as it looks, I promise. So for that C minor 7 chord, the last measure of the second line, put your index finger on the E string, first fret here, reach over to the 3rd fret, top 2 strings physically, with your middle 2 fingers. Then what we're going to do with this hand is we're going to pick the note on the E string, that F note, the number 1. And then for the chord, we're just going to pinch the top 3 strings, fingers where they are. And to get a muted sound after we've pinched it, just put your fingers back down. That's all you've got to do, look. Can you see how that mutes it? If I leave them away, it rings out, but if I put them back down. So if I put that together, the pick of the note and then the pinch of the chord, it sounds like this. Not too bad, right? I'm holding this shape down, pinching the E string, top 3, and then just put your fingers down. Okay, so that's your first chord and the melody note. The next one, all you have to do, I say all, is add your little finger to this G note here. It's the 3rd fret of the E string. You can keep all the others where they are. And you're going to do exactly the same thing with this hand. We're going to pick the E string and then pinch the top 3 and mute it like this. And it's all done with this hand. Look, just pinch, mute. Okay. So if we put those two together, we've got finger off and then on, and that's those 2 chords. Notice that the next melody note, the first note that we play on that 3rd line down, the number 4 or an A flat, it's the next fret over, and you can just move your little finger up. That gives you that number 4. And then the chord is an F7, so you take that off quickly and move this finger back and pinch. So we have that 4th fret, F7 pinch. And then the next thing you do is you hit an A melody note here, just an open A string. Fingers are in the right place now for the F7. And pinch all 4. So we have 4, pinch F7, A, pinch F7. That's it. Let's try putting those 4 bits together. So if we go back to that double bar line, so this is the last measure of the second line. We have that funny C minor 7 shape with 1, 3, 3. And we're going to pick the E string, pinch the top 3 strings. Then we're going to add our little finger down to the 3rd fret, pinch the E string, pinch top 3. Then we're going to move it to the 4th fret, pinch the E string, F7 shape on the top 3, pinch the A string, and then all 4. Okay, so if I put that together really, really slowly, it will sound something like this. Okay, that'll take a bit of practice, but the more you get it, you'll soon see. And notice that you hear that melody, don't buy sugar. It just kind of comes through, which is really sweet. The next measure is actually my favourite in the whole piece. I've made it really playful. What's happening is we've got a B flat 6 chord. Now, I kind of think of that as a diminished 7th chord that's been split apart. Can you see that? So you've got fingers on the 3rd and the 5th fret. So if you're used to a diminished 7th chord at 3 and 4, you can do that and then move over to this shape, okay? Some people prefer to just keep these two down and bar that 3rd fret. It's whichever you feel most comfortable. I find I can get a cleaner sound this way. Can you see that? So we've got 3, 2nd finger's down on 3 but on the E string, 3rd finger comes over here to 5 on the C string, little finger on 5 on the A string. And what I want you to do is give it a bit of a bam, okay? We're going to strum down fairly hard. And then notice, it doesn't ring out. I deaden it, I mute it. And it's the easiest thing in the world. All you have to do is squeeze as you hit, and then take the pressure off. Still keeping these fingers on the strings, but I'm just not squeezing. So squeeze, release. Have a little practice of that, you'll get it. And then as soon as you've done that, we have these two notes, 1, 3, 1, 3 on the A string, B flat C. So you put that together. Okay, not too bad once you've got it. That's the awkward bit, getting your fingers in there. And if you're a sucker for detail, on that first C note, that first 3, I like to bend the string. And you can see that's indicated by that arrow going up. You don't have to do it, it just gives it a bit of a blues feel. So we have the B flat 6. That's it. Okay, let's have a look at the next bit. The next measure is similar in that it's only as hard as its first chord. It's quite a tricky one to hold down, but once you've got it, you'll have it with practice. So what we're going to do is we're going to bar the whole of the 3rd fret. Your 2nd finger is going to come down here on the 4th fret of the A string. So far it kind of looks like a D7 shape moved over. Then finally your ring finger is going to reach over and up, and it's going to land on the 5th fret of the C string. It kind of looks like an F shape moved down and across with a bar, okay? And what you're going to do is just strum that down lightly with the nail side of your index finger. Not muted this time, just a normal strum. And then the next two notes are 3 and 3 on the A string and G string. So what I tend to do is just move that finger off, hit the A string, and then the G string. 3, 3, see your fingers in the right place for those notes. So strum, finger off, pick, pick. Okay. So if I play that together with the last measure, the one with this awkward chord that we stab, it will sound something like this. Okay. So let's do that together really slowly. We've got that 3, 5, 3, 5 chord, that B flat 6. And we stab that one, so stab and then let all the tension go. 1, 3, 1, 3. And then our awkward chord, finger off, and just hit the outside 2 strings. Tricky, it's a really awkward passage, but once you get it, you'll have it, and it does sound super cool. The second half of the B section does a similar thing in that we have these melody notes, followed by a chord. And it's not too tricky again once you've got your fingers in the right place. So we're looking at the last 2 measures of the 3rd line. I want you to start by holding down a D minor shape, just bog standard D minor with these 3 fingers. And then your little finger is going to reach over to the 3rd fret of the E string for this G note here. And what you're going to do is you're going to pinch the E string with your 3rd finger, your middle finger, sorry. and then pinch the top 3 strings like we're doing in the last section. So, okay, E string, top 3 pinch, okay. Then you keep your finger on this D minor shape. This one comes off. This time you pick the A string and you still pinch the top 3 strings. A, pinch. So if you put that together, note there is G. G, pinch, A, pinch. Not too bad, right? Then we go to this old chestnut that we were doing earlier in the song, that G minor 7 shape. Mini bar on the 1st fret, bottom 2 strings nearest the floor. 2nd finger up here, okay? And we're going to pinch the A string, just going to pick it, with our 3rd finger. Pinch the top 3 strings again. So pick, pinch. And then finally, easiest bit actually, just a G7 chord. And we do the same process of picking the A string, pinching the top 3. If I put that all together really slowly so you can hear it, look, D minor, but with this G note added. G, pinch, A note, pinch, G minor 7, pinch, G7, pinch. Okay, and you see, you can still hear that. That rising melody coming through. Have a little practice, perhaps stop the video, just practice that round a couple of times. Nearly there, guys, I promise. The next thing we have is another one of those really cool kind of stabbed chords. A bit like we're doing with this one down here. Well, this one is based on a movable 7th shape. What I want you to do is try playing a G7 chord, but you're not allowed to use this index finger. So you have to use your 2nd, 3rd and 4th fingers like this. Okay, that gives you a G7. If you move that up, every finger carefully slides across 1 fret. And then you cover this open G string, the only one without finger on, with this index finger. You've turned G7 chord into a movable 7th shape, so now it's G sharp 7. If you carefully keep all those fingers the same distance apart and move up, release all the pressure, then we have an A7. If we move up 1 more, A sharp 7. 1 more, B7. And 1 more, because there's no B sharp, a C7. That's your chord. Okay, we're going to do a short, sharp stab on. Now that's quite a tricky one to get your fingers in quite quickly, isn't it? It's almost like a diminished shape, but this finger's moved back. And have you noticed, you can use those, if you compare to diminished 7th shapes, you can use them to form all sorts of chord shapes. But there is an easier way. If you struggle with the 4-finger version, it's absolutely fine if you just want to use a G7 shape on the C, E and A strings, the bottom 3 strings nearest the floor. The reason that works is because there's a G note in a C7, so it's okay to hit this open G. Okay, so we've either got this one as is written, or if you find it easier, just do a G7 shape and mute it. Okay, then we've got a similar thing where we've got 2 notes with 1 bent, but this time it's on 3 and 5 on the A string. Just 3, 5, 3, 5, right? And if you want to, you can bend the 2nd note. It's quite difficult on this tenor with high tension, but you can just hear it. So if you put that together, we have this chord, or that one if it's easier, okay? We stab it, 3, 5, 3, 5. Yeah, cool. And then literally the last new part of the song, because the rest is all repeats, we've got a C7, another 7th movable shape. This one's based on an A7 chord, moved up to the 3rd and 4th frets. So barring that 3rd fret, 2nd finger on the C string at the 4th fret. Then, because the melody note is up here, this E flat note, you're going to reach your little finger way up to the 6th fret. So can you see that? We've got a bar on the 3rd fret, 2nd finger on the C string 4th fret, so that's like a C7 movable shape. Little finger on the 6th fret. It's a bit of a challenging one again, but once you've got it, you'll have it. Then what you do is you strum that, play the 5th fret of the A string, and then the 3rd fret of the A string. You could just come out of it and hit that note there, but what I prefer to do is strum this one, use that finger for the 5, take it away, gives you 3. So strum, pick, pick. Okay. So if I put that together with the measure before, it will sound like this. Stab the chord, 3, 5, 3, 5. Then this shape, 5 off. Okay. Again, take a little bit of practice with that one, but once you've got it, you've got it. And believe it or not, that's the whole song, because the rest is just repeats. Should we just try and play through that whole of that B section really, really slowly, and then we can piece the whole thing together? Let's try the whole of that B section, like super, super slow motion then. A lot to take in here, so let's go really slow. So we're going from the last measure of the 2nd line. We've got this finger here on the 1 and the 2 up here on 3. Remember, we're going to pinch the E string, top 3. Then we add this finger here, 3, pinch, 4, pinch and F7, hit the A string, pinch and F7, then this 3, 5, 3, 5 and stab it, 1, 3, 1, 3. Then this awkward one here, barring the 3rd, F shape on 4 and 5, strum it, and 3, 3. Then we go to D minor shape, finger on the 3rd fret, pinch, open A, pinch, G minor 7, and G7, pinch. Then we go up to this shape, remember you can do that one, stab it, 3, 5, 3, 5, movable C7 with 6, 5, 3. Okay, now really slowly let's do that all together after 4. If you're not there yet, just watch and just see how it works. Okay, so here we go. 2, 3, 4. Good. Yay! That's all the new parts. You actually know every part of this song now, because the last A section is basically the start of the first A section. Just so we've had a go at it, let's give it a try. So we're going from measure 18. That's the penultimate line, the last 2 measures. So we're back to this G minor 7 with this finger added, our classic. Just like at the start, right? So let's try that. So 2, 3, 4 strum. Pick, pick, pick off. And we go again, strum. Pick, pick, pick off. Same at the start again. Lift up. Then your C13. Strum. D minor shape. F, F7 shape, B flat major 7 shape with swivel, D minor shape, and then to finish off an F, and if you bar the whole of the 5th fret, we have an F6. That's it! So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play the whole thing from top to bottom, including the repeats. I'm going to go at a really slow tempo. So if you feel ready, you can have a go with playing along. And even if that's just for short sections, that's absolutely fine. You can always pause the video and come back to another section in a bit. If you're not quite ready, but this will give you an idea of how it sounds once you piece the whole thing together. As I play through this, notice there's one tiny little addition that I make to the original sheet music. And that's a little, almost like a ghost strum on those C7 chords, the altered open ones. So it's in the A section. We start with this G minor 7 strummed, and then pick, pick, pick. I pinch this first one, and then that little addition there, all I'm doing is after I've picked that open chord, I'm just following it down with a really light down strum using the nails of my finger. It kind of adds a little bit of punctuation, but it also helps me keep in time. See how then I haven't got that big gap before the next measure. So that's entirely optional. I think it sounds nice, but you can put it in or you can leave it out. Totally your call. Okay, let's give it a go. 1, 2, 3, 4. The top. Second repeat. B section. A section. So there we go. Well done. Remember, you can use YouTube's function. There's 3 dots in the top right corner, depending on what tablet or computer you're on, where you can alter the playback speed whilst keeping the pitch. So you could have a listen to that slower. Hopefully the timing is all right. I might have gone off a little bit here and there. I actually, when you get used to playing something at quite a quick tempo, sometimes it's really hard to slow it down and play it in time. But hopefully it's good enough for you to get an idea and practice along to or aspire to. And whether you can play the whole thing or just sections of it, I hope that's really bolstered your playing and just showed you how much progress that you've made over the last few months or years. Because we're doing all sorts of difficult things there. We're consolidating a lot of the learning we've done in this entire course. We're playing chord melody, where we're hearing the melody come through at the same time as a chordal accompaniment. We're altering the pitch and the timbre of our strums to give it dynamics. We're concentrating on picking correctly with the right angles and timbre with this hand, as well as cleanly progressing through those chords and melody notes with this hand. So loads of stuff going on there, and hopefully that's really bolstered and shown you how much fantastic technique that you've learned. And if you're not quite there yet, that's absolutely fine as well. You can take this as slow as you want, and you can also come back to it later when you're more confident. I purposefully wanted to give quite a challenging piece to round off the course, partly to show you all the amazing things that you've learned, or you can aspire to if you're not quite there yet. But also, I find just pushing people slightly out of their comfort zone makes them kind of reach for the stars, and it makes you want to move up that level, get off that plateau and just aim for something a little bit more interesting.